Welcome, everyone. My name is Heather Fry, and I'm with the Journal of Future Studies. Today, I have Dr. Timothy Dolan joining me. Dr. Dolan is the principal at Policy Foresight, which is a long-term public policy forecasting consultancy in Palm Desert. He did his doctoral studies under Dr. James Dator at the University of Hawaii's Center for Future Studies, which is one of two such programs in the United States. He's also taught at institutions of higher learning in the United States and abroad, and he has also published scholarly research in the area of future studies. Dr. Dolan, it's a pleasure to have you joining me today to discuss your article titled A Post Hoc Causal Layer Analysis of American Trumpism, which will appear in JFS's upcoming symposium titled Reimagining Politics After the Election of Trump. Hi, Dr. Dolan.
Hello, Heather.
Would you mind giving us a brief overview of how you applied causal layer analysis in this article?
Sure. First, by way of kind of a preface, the sort of the initiator of causal layer analysis is, as you may know, Dr. Sohail Inayatullah, who is not only a colleague, but a contemporary of mine. We went through the program at the University of Hawaii at the same time. I believe he finished a little bit quicker than I did. He certainly wrote a much longer dissertation than I did. And that interaction has persisted now, of course, over what is now decades. And of course, he's a far more expert at describing causal layered analysis than I am. But I am familiar with that method, and I consider myself a kind of a methods guy. Back when I was going to the University of Hawaii, that political science department was quite strong in research methods, and I picked up on that tradition from the faculty that I worked with there. So it's not just causal layered analysis, but all manner of research methods that I've gained some expertise in. Of course, I've now settled into various forms of forecasting methods, causal layered analysis being one of them. In my view, given the topic that we are dealing with in this particular symposium, causal layered analysis seemed to be the right tool for the job, which is why I designed my piece around a causal layered analysis of American Trumpism.
That's great. I really appreciate the background on Dr. Inayatullah. Sometimes I jump a little bit ahead and just assume everyone knows what causal layered analysis is and the history of it, so I appreciate that. And given your analysis in this article, how can we envision the long-term future that you were talking about, being that that is the topic and the overarching theme of this symposium?
Yeah, and I'll speak specifically to my piece, which is, of course, I think, our topic really was generated from a collective shock over the fact that Donald J. Trump became president of the United States.
Absolutely.
I don't think anybody in the futures community was really anticipating that at all. And of course, what happens is that we end up kind of, after the fact, creating our own narratives as to how that happened. So what better way of doing an analysis of competing narratives than causal layered analysis? And so, I took those themes, the first being, of course, the litany theme, where, again, we found out that it culminated in the election of Donald Trump. And then, of course, taking it to the social causes layer, it's an excavation, as you know, where we're looking at sort of the social scientists' analysis of the that. And as we move deeper through the various layers, we're lengthening our perception and our perspective. And what I came to realize, of course, I started this as with everybody else in more or less a state of shock. But then through the analysis, found that we really, I shouldn't say we shouldn't have been surprised, but the forces that culminated in the election of Donald Trump have been around for quite some time. And they are running themes. It's just that now they've come to the surface, and they've been exacerbated, prompted, if you will, by other events, including, and I do subscribe to the acceleration of history school, that history is moving faster and faster. And as a result, we are now seeing portions of society becoming future shocked, that there is this inability to really cope with the dynamics and this constant churning change that we're seeing in historical process now. So the impulse is to collectively kind of return to a time that was more comprehensible. So we see that manifested in a personality, in this case Donald Trump, who is very much a product of really 2 generations back, and tapping into kind of a collective nostalgia, signaled by his, very broad rhetorical policies. They're not real policies, but his rhetoric is a return to a mythical golden age. So that was sort of the heart of my analysis, and then through the piece itself, I won't go into detail here, but it was a way of sorting out and identifying those very deep, long-running themes that we've had in certainly American culture, and I believe globally we're seeing similar variations on this.
No, that's great. Thank you. And you're right, we don't want to go into too much detail because I don't want people to miss out on being able to read the article themselves. But I do want to push you a little bit further from what you wrote in the article, which I think you give a really great description of the methodology of causal layer analysis, why you used it, how, and then of course, the way you laid it out and practiced the methodology in your paper. And then also giving that context for the Trump election, of course. But moving forward, what are the leverage points that you see for enacting change in the future, or the long-term future, as we have it, hopefully post-Trump, if you will?
Yeah, I am, again, trying to, for me, the heart of it goes back even to my days working on my dissertation, which my dissertation was in the question of how do we create citizens? And I went into service as a rite of passage to adult citizenship. We are not very good at civic education. We're not very good at not simply civic education in kind of its conventional sense, but understanding our identities as citizens of the country, but also citizens of the world. And we need to, I think, look to inculcating that in rising generations. I think we do need to look at call it a futures curriculum that gets into questions about coping with events and with learning. I'll use a phrase that Jim Dator was fond of using, learning how to surf. That waves of change are dynamic. They carry with them certain unique attributes. Every wave is different. But if you learn to surf, you can surf different waves. So I think in some ways it's that underlying attitude that needs to be addressed. And again, starting with rising generations.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I just want to say it's really been my pleasure to have you on with me today, Dr. Dolan. And Dr. Dolan has just written an article titled "A Post-Hoc Causal Layered Analysis of American Trumpism," which will be appearing in the JFS's upcoming symposium called Reimagining Politics After the Election of Donald Trump. Thank you.
Thank you very much.